Okay. Good evening and good afternoon. We are live now from Helsinki and California.
Woo-hoo. Hello, everyone.
Hello. I'm very happy to be back here with our webcast. My webcast on community resilience, community building, and I called it Rising Unity because starting at that in the middle, almost in the beginning of COVID, I thought, how can we connect as people in Finland, in our different communities, and really find that strength and connection and belonging, which we all yearn for. And I have a very special guest, Tiffany Shlain, a hero that I've been following for several years now. And whenever I'm in a bad mood, I just go on Let It Ripple or YouTube and type her name. And I know there's so much good things here to bring about humanity. And I really thank you for just responding to my mail. I had no idea you would reply.
I'm so happy to. I know I was looking back at our threads because I think we first communicated like four years ago. So it's really wonderful to be here. And I've mentioned Finland in several of my movies because it's like a country that I look to as getting more things right than my current country right now. Anyway, so it's really wonderful to speak to your community.
Absolutely, and virtual welcome to Finland. And anyone who's listening, you already read a very long, extensive bio I did on Tiffany. But Tiffany, you are Emmy-nominated filmmaker. You are Genius 100 nominated by Albert Einstein Foundation. You have written the most spoken book, Unplugging One Day a Week, which we will talk about. Unplugging One Day, what is it? 24/6.
24/6.
Yeah, 24/6. And you've turned Zoom into a baking competition with baking and creating communities. It was amazing.
It's been great. Talk about a resilient community. I've been baking with people from all over the world since the beginning of the pandemic, which has been very fun. Yeah,
it's incredible. And I want to hear, like, how did that idea happen as well? So, but yeah, I want to hear you're very much in tech. You've been also named as a pioneer, internet pioneer. I watched some of your TED Talks. You've done a few of them, and how it is to be. We are in a tech country. Finland is, tech corner of the world, and we want to see how can tech have that human face, but also with this constant change, with constant adaptation. How can we not to be online all the time, because even I am always online, but if no one is immune of this overusing and over being on digital social medias. So I would like to hear your inputs on how you talk, because you are often on different platforms, and basically, and anyone who's listening, again, ask a question. Let's engage these next 25 minutes. So Tiffany.
Yeah, if you looked at a lot of my films, I run a film studio, and then I did just write this book. The thread I think throughout would be, when does technology amplify who we are, and when does it amputate us? Mm-hmm. And especially during the pandemic, we're having to use screens so much more, and it can be beautiful and give you community and all these things, but we have to remember that it's important to turn them all off, even more so now, and we have to be more intentional about that. And I wrote my book 24/6 before the pandemic because my family and I founded the Webby Awards. I had spent my career in technology. My husband's a professor of robotics. We are super into technology, but also critical of it too. Like, when does it not make things better? Mm-hmm. And around 10 years ago, my family and I started turning off all screens one day a week. Mm-hmm. And we've done it every week for now almost 11 years. And it's been the most profound thing I've ever done in my life. And it's made me feel more creative and productive and more of a sense of well-being, so I can be resilient. So I get reset every week in such a deep way. And I think about everyone now with the burnout of being online all the time, and you're living from home and you're working from home and educating from home, like everything's on the screen. And even more so that we need to create a boundary to truly reset and recharge and hear our inner voice and be reflective and not be getting new stimulation every second, because I've made a lot of films on neuroscience, and our brains truly need that time where we're not getting new information, and we're working with all the stuff that's already in there, which is a lot. And that's when your new ideas come from. So
can you name those videos, like those films? Can you see them online?
Okay. Yes. I've made 30 films, so I'm going to just mention a few. One's called The Science of Character, which really looks at the neuroscience and social science of who you are. I made one called The Adaptable Mind that's very relevant to today. It's 11 minutes, and a lot of people have been re-showing it lately. What are the skills we need to thrive in the 21st century? I made one called Technology Shabbats, which explores this ritual my family does. And I made a feature documentary called Connected, which really explores all of these ideas and what's the benefits of being connected, and when do we need to question it, and when do we need to turn the screens off. So, yeah, and in my book, I go into all of this stuff. I'm very interested in kind of the neuroscience of creativity and productivity and resilience and all of these things that you're exploring. Because right now, actually, how is it in Finland with COVID? Are you guys, what is it like right now?
Well, we're expecting a second wave. It has been quite relaxed. We actually traveled with my husband to Denmark, and now it's again the border recommendations, like, you know, you don't need to travel unless you really need to, and they have found
they did a new set of restrictions.
Yeah, they did, and they're recommending masks in some places. You know, they tell you to wear masks. It's not a must yet, but yeah, a lot of recommendation to use it at least in public transport. But throughout the corona, we could be outside, you know, go out, have walk. I live near forest, so I was blessed that we could be outside because so many countries in Europe couldn't. And Uzbekistan, my home country, it's suffering through a really terrible second wave, and it's devastating to see it. I haven't seen my family for almost a year, and I don't know when I'll see them again. So it's been heartbreaking, and but family is good. But there's been a lot of death, and my language teacher, Uzbek language teacher, passed away. My sister's brother-in-law's brother passed away. So it's a lot of suffering and grief.
I'm so sorry.
So yeah, but Finland is blessed. I'm so happy I live in Finland. I can see a lot of possibilities. I can see a lot of changes possible, you know, and working on this beautiful project that I do, it just allows me to think, yes, you can get cynical, of course, but just the fact that I can do this. I get a lot of people keep coming back with feedback saying that, listen, we need this kind of, you know, engagements online. It doesn't always have to be in Finnish, because we're also global and international. And we all want to find our footing in Finland in any way. So what if, you know, you've been super active during Corona, you got these Zoom calls where you like your fingers fixed in yeast and telling people what to bake. What was your lesson learned with those baking Zoom?
You know, it was okay. In my book 24/6, the only recipe in it is my challah bread recipe, because I make it every week. We make a Shabbat dinner on Friday nights, and we have people over. Now we have them over at a distance, but we make a really amazing challah bread recipe.
Yeah.
So my daughters at the beginning of the pandemic were like, let's do it online. And I was like, that's a great idea. And I didn't have any expectations, but now we have like literally 150 people from Germany and Italy and all over the United States. And it's crazy. And I have special guests. So I have authors and psychologists and scientists. And so it's been very fun. And we're doing actually one next week. And we just finished a 4-minute highlight video of all the best moments from them. And it's really fun. So I'm
going to try to join that next week.
Yeah, come. In fact, all your viewers, it's very fun and very interesting. And next week is going to be all about the topic of secular ritual. So ritual without religion. So I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious. And most people don't understand that a lot of Jews aren't religious but are Jewish. And we have a lot of people coming to the Challah Bake who aren't Jewish, who are Christian and Catholic and Buddhist. And we're really talking about ritual for community to unite us, and without it needing to be tied to a religion. So that's going to be the topic next week. Yeah, so maybe you can, if people just go to tiffanyShlain.com, yeah, you can send a link.
Yeah, I can share a link to this podcast. So the collaboration, how has your team also has been spread out. So what are your collaboration advice to people working dispersed groups and across different geographies that don't see each other?
That's a good question. Okay. One of my first pieces of advice is have boundaries. So like on the weekends, we don't do any communicating. Like if you're working really hard, have some kind of agreed upon boundaries on when you communicate or how.
Okay.
For me, it's like the no technology on the
Mhm.
weekend. So, I think that is important now that we have to
Because
communicate all the time.
yeah.
But I think, we went through so many kind of ebbs and flows with the pandemic. It was so novel at first. We're all online. I mean, the fact that you and I are having this call, and that's an exciting part. I've had so many wonderful video calls with people from all over the world. And then there was a period where people did too much of it and they got burned out. And now I think we're coming around to the other side. And I really feel like what's been very interesting about this period is you have to be much more intentional with who you see at a distance, who you call, who you videotape, and what community events you join. So I think at the beginning, everyone was doing everything. And now in this new phase, and now understanding it's going to be so much longer, is what are the things that inspire you and give back and teach you things? And this is always a question you should ask at the end of every day. What gave to you and what drained?
What gave you and what drained?
What gave you energy and what drained from you? And really, because I feel like during this period of uncertainty and with COVID, we have to, our energy and time is so weird and productivity is so different. And we have to be more in tune with that.
I think it's a good question to be practice self-reflection. What gives you energy, what drains you, because then you kind of figure out what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And one of the ways to use the crisis as an opportunity to reshape your life, how you set boundaries, how you treat each other at work, at home. I wrote it down. So great. And the perspective on tech, how do you get the best out of tech in relationships? If you're an entrepreneur, how can you use it for better, lead generation, or in general, say like, yes, it's not fake. You can actually make it human and engaging.
Well, I love that there's all these video platforms now. I mean, I think that is wonderful. And there was so many times in email or on social media, it was so hard to convey what you were feeling because you just had emojis or whatever. So I like this big accelerated move to video. I think that's great. But also know you can't do too many video calls a day. I mean, there's sometimes where people want to do a Zoom and I say, let's do it as a call and we'll both take a walk. And really, again, being intentional, like how many Zooms can you really do a day before you burn out? And I know a lot of people have to do them, do them for work, but even proposing, if you work for a manager that has I have a friend who's like, I'm on Zooms all day from 8 to 5 p.m. And I'm like, are you sure there are no Zooms that you could say, hey, let's both take a walk, move our body? I mean, be the leader to propose that being on a Zoom all day is probably not super healthy and that you need to move your body. And also, I'll share something with you that was kind of weird that happened to me 2 weeks ago. Is I got carpal tunnel for the first time, where I had shooting pains in my arm and my hand, which I had never had before. And of course, it's because I'm on the computer in all these weird positions, sitting on the couch in the chair. I'm not in ergonomic settings. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been to the doctor a bunch, and I'm trying to use audio, so I'm not typing. So I'm really learning all the dictation features.
Oh yeah, I've tried that. That's quite cool.
It's actually very good now. I mean, you can really do all your emails and text that way. But, again, this is about don't overdo it and don't be on Zooms too much. Don't be on the screen too much. When can it be a call? When can you, think about how many you really want to do a day and try as much as you can to do that. And you'll just find that you're using technology in a powerful way instead of it using you and you feeling depleted at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I've read somewhere that what you said about the internet, that yes, it can be daunting. And I was away from internet for 3 weeks, and it was weird to come back to this every day,
Yeah.
But then again, it gives you connection. It's not, addiction. And what you wrote, it was really interesting. I want to read that out. You said, the internet is our global brain towards which we can apply all the wisdom we are gaining about the brain in our heads and the character in our lives.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really nice way to put and say, listen, yes, that's collective energy and don't give up on that, but keep the boundaries to really be productive and don't burn out and really make better collaboration, better connection to people.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
Well, I think, so much of, in one of my movies, I quoted somebody Salanter, who was saying, this is the quote, First I tried to change the world and I failed. Mm-hmm. Then I tried to change my community and I failed. Then I tried to change my family and I failed. Then I changed myself and I was able to change the world. So it's like, think of taking care of yourself as the ability to then contribute best to your family, community, and the world. And so it all ripples outwards. So the more you have command of understanding certain parts of yourself, you can strengthen, like empathy and resilience and persistence and courage. They're all like muscles you need to exercise. The better you're going to be. And if turning off all the screens one day a week is going to make you so much better the other 6, that's a great ritual to bring into your life. And that was one of the reasons I wrote the book, was like, it's not healthy the way we're all living. I mean, my arm gave out, literally. I couldn't use my arm the last 2 weeks, and that scared me. And I was like, wow, the screens and the technology is frying the veins in my arm. That's the way it felt. I mean, but I was really like, if there is a sign that I'm on technology, even with my day, and super, it became very visceral this last couple weeks.
Yeah, I heard a friend of mine, she also suffered from the whole shoulder pain, overworked, absolutely overworked. It's scary. Yeah. So taking care of yourself is still important to tap into the community, because one of the webcasts I had, previous ones, they said that, if you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to connect to other people. And we know how loneliness is more dangerous than diabetes and smoking. And you need to keep communication line open. And this is where technology can be a beautiful tool and not overdone things. So, and on the community lessons, have you had any new ideas or lessons from this pandemic? Say, okay, well, how do you build a community now? We all need it more than ever. Or well, it's interesting because there's so many social media platforms. I mean, obviously, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, but the thing that keeps me most connected to my community, and I know you're on it, is my email list. Yeah. And it's interesting because social media, like, they change the algorithm. Sometimes you see your friends' posts, sometimes you don't. No, but that's right. Email is your direct line to your community. So anyone listening, your contact list is gold, because the social media companies can't influence. Well, sometimes if your email goes into spam, but I have a very big email list that I manage, I take care of, I prune old email addresses out of, and because it's my golden thread to my community. And when I write my newsletters, it's like a direct conduit to people, and that's wonderful. And right now we're just working on, we took a month break because I was doing the baking and I was sending a newsletter out every week, and I was just trying to put out so much to provide community during that very hard time. And then I was like, I need a break so badly. So I took a month off, and we're just about to send a new one. And we've only once. Great. They were great.
Thank you. I know people wrote us so many notes of appreciation about how much the emails mean to them. And I love that. And in the 20 years that I've been making films, only once before have we asked for money, because we are provided by foundations and grants. And this email that I'm working on, we're going to ask for support, because a big grant we were expecting to get, we didn't get because of the pandemic.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Well, no, but it's interesting because I think asking for help is also a part of community. This is tying back to being honest. And, for so long we've tried to provide inspiration and films and the holobakes and all this stuff, but we're going to also ask for help. And people like that. I find that organizations and communities that have asked me for support during this period, I have been psyched to help. Because if it truly is meaningful to you, you will give. and you don't want to see them go away. And I think that right now, in so many, I don't know what it's like in Finland, but in America, a lot of businesses are closing.
Yeah.
And I think just showing up for the communities that you believe in is important.
Exactly, and it is part of community, that being reciprocal, that of course you get support, but you also, when you're in trouble, you get support, but when the community is in trouble, you help this community.
Yeah.
And I think it's reciprocity is a big part of it. There's one cafe owner that I interviewed, and she's Korean Black American cafe owner in Helsinki with her sister. And they miraculously, they were saved by Helsinki community with the money they needed together so that they didn't close down. And I promised to meet her face to face once we open up. So actually I can go and schedule meetings. So it's really beautiful stories of communities that we discovered. I haven't met all of the speakers that I interviewed. I traveled to Niger with my Global Dignity colleague. You know, when I followed since you started on Character Day, it was very close to Global Dignity community that I'm part of. We're in 8 countries. And those in Finland, you will know there's a beautiful app for emotional learning, social emotional learning called Mighty Fire. Have you heard of them?
Oh, I haven't.
Yeah, they so they promote more this empathy through an app. So every student or a teacher can start the day by giving each other positive feedback, and so the kids learn positive adjectives of character strengths.
I love that.
And I was like, this is amazing. So Character Day, Global Dignity, Mighty Fire. I mean, we have like this whole amazing rainbow of great practices to bringing in together. So
I love that. And just so your listeners, we have a whole bunch of short films that we've made for Character Day that are available if anyone wants to go to characterday.org. And I think Global Dignity, wasn't it started in Norway?
And by Crown Prince of Norway, Finnish philosopher Pekka Himanen, and then in the US, John O'Brien. So they started in a World Economic Forum.
Right.
Yeah. So we're making small dignity workshops every year, and so just like people hear that word matter and make it tangible.
I love that.
So Tiffany, on between Finland and California, where are you now exactly? In which city?
I'm in Mill Valley, which is across the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Okay.
We were in, my film studio was in San Francisco, but we're all remote now, and we closed down our film studio, and which is so weird. But I mean, if we film, we'll just rent a place. But
so between Mel, sorry, I didn't hear the name. The place where you live.
Oh, Mill Valley
and Helsinki. What do you think of Finland in terms of Finnish community? What comes to your mind?
Well, I always think of Finland as really when they do like the happiness indexes or well-being indexes, it's always referencing Finland and some really interesting scientific studies because the population is so small. So I always have just positive feelings about Finland. I feel like it's used as a model country in America, and you know, I would love to go there someday.
You're very welcome to come visit. I think one thing that it's interesting to hear when you talk about Finland's being happy country several years now. They laugh here. They're like, okay, seriously?
They're like, we're depressed.
No, exactly. And they always they get even annoyed about these things. But there's Simon Enholt. He's a founder of Good Country Index. I've met him actually this January. So
wait a second. I'm so glad you mentioned his name. He wrote to me, and I need to write back to him. Yes.
Right. So he talked about Good Country Index, and then I had a chat with him. And then he's like, so where are you from? I'm like, well, I'm from Uzbekistan and I live in Nordics for like almost 20 years. And then he goes and tells me, so Camilla, you're an example what's good right in the world and what's wrong in the world. Yeah, well, we're trying to make, I'm very active on gender equality topics and youth engagement in Uzbekistan. So one day
have you ever seen my film 50/50?
I saw the trailer, but not the whole thing. But I would
enjoy it. Yeah, because it's a lot about gender equality and
yes, that I know. Yeah. So there is a teacher of my in Haaga-Helia University here in Helsinki, Pia. Pia says, "Thank you for the empowering talk." Thank you, Pia, for watching. Whoever is listening, is there anything that comes to mind? Because we need to wrap this up soon. So anything you want to ask from Emmy-nominated filmmaker or questions on technology, just give me or send me a emoji. And so I know that you're listening because I can't see them in my screen. So. Yeah. But something that also connects us is how to show emotions and be vulnerable. I think that's my lesson learned from COVID is that to be vulnerable and recognize that, and also we've seen each other as colleagues, how people are challenged with homeschooling kids or not being able to see families or having sick people around family. How could you see that? What made you vulnerable this time?
That's great. Well, I think it points back to when I told you that I'm asking my community in this next newsletter for funding, which is kind of a vulnerable. Like I feel uncomfortable doing it, but I think that it. And I wrote a really vulnerable email when I had to give up my film studio, which got probably the biggest response. And I think it just shows that I kind of like seeing people in their homes too, and with not that that's vulnerable. They decorate their home with what I love. You gave me a little tour. I love that aspect of seeing people in context. So the wholeness of who they are, even when their kids come in, the dogs bark. I don't know. That's real life, and I think that's kind of a great aspect of all of this.
Right. And on the note of again on technology, and we're talking about equality, the 50/50. Could you tell us about that? Because there's a lot of talk on women in tech, and how can we turn the ride and bring more dialogue. I've been a coach on women in tech speaking competition to get more why women love tech.
If you look at COVID, the countries that have been doing best are run by women. So I don't think there's a question that there should be more women leadership, but it's hard. I mean, I'm a mom, and during COVID, I am making more food, I'm cleaning up more. I'm like all these things I used to be at my office, and now it's harder for me to be as productive. And it's not as hard for my husband to be as productive. It's interesting because at the end of the day, a lot of it, like when people say, why aren't there more women in high office or CEOs? And it's because we're managing the household, and that's a lot of friggin' work. And so, but the film 50/50, I really chronicle the 10,000-year history of women in power, of like goddess culture, and when women were strong, and showing all the times throughout history where women were in leadership position, instead of we're like trying to get into leadership position, we're just trying to get back to where we were. And when you look at the whole history of women in leadership, and certainly right now, it's a perfect example of what countries are doing well with COVID, what countries aren't, and who's showing vulnerability. Because I think a lot of, like in America, our president refused to show vulnerability and to refuse to acknowledge how serious it was, because he didn't want to show weakness, because that's very male. And look where that got us. Yeah, I mean, I think we're like the second highest COVID rate in the world. So,
but there's a lot of still there's a lot more stories of solidarity, and if you go and Google Tiffany Shlain, she's on different podcasts, and I just love all of them. There's lots of solidarity. You had on Refinery 29, graduated together. You've been sharing those graduated. Was streaming?
Yeah, I mean, I've given some commencement speeches, and yeah, people go to tiffanyshlain.com, and that's SHLAIN.com. There's like all my films and some of my bigger talks. But I'm always just trying to wrestle with this, and I think all of my films and talks and work, it's like I do try to have a vulnerability in there, as well as inspiring people to be the best versions of themselves or learn the tools to get them to where they want to go.
Yeah. And I want to read one more what's interesting. You bring in a quote from naturalist John Moore.
Yeah.
And so again, when you think of internet, you say that when you tug at a single thing at the universe, you find it's attached to everything else. So, and that keeps me again, that sense that yes, we can be divided, we can be disconnected, but our well-being is tied up to the well-being of one another. And that gives me the strength to say, yes, I may not be wanted in this country because of my hair color, because of the religion I practice, or my last name, or just by the virtue I have an ethnic background. But I still think when you come with peace there, and there's a way, with a smile, with an open heart, and knowing that everyone has dignity, that you can connect, you can build resilience, and you can get opportunities and access to be in a space of decision making, of influencing filmmaking. So, and I think you show a lot as a filmmaker and artist that where the world can go and should go, and connecting people in yeast fingers. I love it. Thank you for doing that, and I hope you keep the energy to continue and to think of also Central Asia. I don't know if you have any ties to that, but there's 75 million people which are between Europe and Southeast Asia. We're Central Asia. So we it's opening up to the world, but there's
one thing you said, I want to go back to one thing. I want to go back to one thing you said. Because you were talking about being in your culture with a different hair color, different last name. And I actually think it's an incredible perspective to be an outsider. I really do. I think you see what others don't see. And when you do connect, you're coming in from an unusual perspective, which I think is really important. So I'm blonde hair, blue-eyed, but I'm Jewish, and most people don't know I am. And it's an unusual perspective because people don't think I'm a minority that people don't even know when they look at me. So I'm like constantly looking at the world wherever I am, like from the outside. And I think it's a great gift. So I think your perspective, and look at the webcast you're doing, is about bringing people together, and you have such an unusual perspective and gift to do that because you're an outsider, or sometimes you have that perspective. So don't ever want to lose that, because that's an important perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Actually, it ties back to what I was talking about with technology. In the internet and on technology all the time, you never get perspective. When you turn off, you finally get perspective of, oh my God, I'm online all the time, or what is this doing to me, or what is it doing to society or the world? You need to unplug to be an outsider to the world. Like we need, the outsider perspective is like such a valuable perspective.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think it's also a way to recognize that there's not many people who, not always we see people who travel or who enjoy the idea of experiencing different cultures or living in different cultures. So one perspective I got from international students is that she said that you should be happy to know a person from another country. Now, I took that for granted because I know a lot of people from another country, but there's a lot of people also who don't. And I think that curiosity can be brought in and be awakened in these times of Corona, because we get different perspectives, we get different ideas. So I think how to be more open up to each other is we need those experiences, those stories, individuals. And this is why this webcast today, I wanted to highlight you as a community creator on the other side of the Atlantic, on the outside of the world, but really linking all of us people together in our interests and passions. And I recognized a lot of community creators, doers, influencers in Finland. And Finland needs much more publicity to the world. There's a lot of things that are being done here, but because of people write very smart things in Finnish and not many people speak Finnish, that beautiful wisdom remains in Finnish. So
that's interesting.
I find that job for me indirectly is because I love all these. Every day I get inspired by different policies, different rules, different news, how accessible Finland wants to create services. And still there's work in progress on accessibility, on inclusion, participation. But that to bring it out to the world and make more cooperation, make more co-creation as well in education and inclusive workplace cultures, and also just make more people, dare more people to speak their stories and become change makers.
I love that. Love that. So, yeah. So great to be on the show, and really great to see you and meet you visually in person.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, and good luck. And we hope to see each other in person one day in Finland or in the US. And anyone who's listened, thank you for tuning in, even though it's a bit late for the Finnish hour. But I hope that you will think of what Tiffany said on unplugging, not being stimulated 24 hours. Have a, what is it, Tech Shabbat that you said?
Yes.
Have yourself a beautiful Tech Shabbat, and you also see being intentional on every Zoom that you join, or you can join
if you can. Yeah.
Making Zoom. Okay, but thank you so much, and see you guys later. Stay tuned, stay safe and healthy, and let's all rise in unity as a community.
I love that. Thank you.
Bye.